The silence in the briefing room felt heavier than the classified folders scattered across the mahogany table. Admiral Rebecca Thorne studied the satellite images through wire-rimmed glasses, her fingers drumming against the leather armrest of her chair. Outside the Pentagon's reinforced windows, Washington, D.C. hummed with the ordinary rhythm of a Tuesday morning in September, oblivious to the crisis brewing 5,000 miles away in the South China Sea. "Ma'am, we have a problem," Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rivera said, his voice cutting through the morning stillness like a blade through silk. The decorated officer had seen combat in 3 theaters, but something in his expression suggested this was different. Worse. Thorne's eyes never left the thermal imaging displays. Heat signatures bloomed like deadly flowers across the screen. Too many, too organized, too close to American interests for comfort. The timestamp read 3:47 hours local time. Whatever had happened in those dark waters occurred while most of America slept, dreaming peaceful dreams their military worked tirelessly to protect. "How many?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer would reshape everything. 17 vessels, Chinese Type 55 destroyers supported by submarine assets we can't fully identify. They've established a perimeter around the Spratly Islands, effectively cutting off our supply routes to Taiwan. Rivera paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Intelligence suggests they're not planning to leave. The admiral's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She'd spent 32 years in naval service, rising through ranks that had never been kind to women, especially not women who looked like her. Every promotion had been earned twice over, every decision scrutinized with microscopic intensity by those who believed leadership belonged to others. But in this moment, with potential war hovering like storm clouds on the horizon, none of that mattered. What mattered was the call sign flickering on her secure phone's display, Phoenix 7, a name that would soon echo through the halls of military legend, though nobody in that room yet understood why. The woman behind that call sign was currently 300 feet below the Pacific Ocean's surface, piloting an experimental aircraft that officially didn't exist. Her billionaire background made her an anomaly in military circles, her race and gender adding layers of complexity that Pentagon officials preferred to ignore. They'd recruited Dr. Amara Akafer for her engineering brilliance and kept her for her unexpected tactical genius, though few were willing to admit either publicly. But today, as satellite feeds showed Chinese naval forces positioning for what could only be described as an act of war, every assumption about Dr. Akafer would be tested. The rifle no man could carry wasn't made of steel and gunpowder. It was crafted from technology so advanced that its very existence challenged the fundamental principles of modern warfare. In 6 hours, the world would discover what happened when an underestimated genius decided to remind everyone exactly why she'd earned her wings. The submarine's hull groaned softly as Dr. Amara Akafer adjusted the experimental aircraft's position within its launch bay. The vehicle resembled nothing in any public military database, sleek as a manta ray, but bristling with technology that bent the laws of physics into submission. She designed half the systems herself during her previous life as a defense contractor, back when her MIT doctorate and family fortune opened doors that her skin color might otherwise have kept closed. "Phoenix 7, this is Control. We're seeing unusual movement in your sector. Recommend immediate surface protocol," came the voice through her headset, tinged with the kind of tension that made experienced operators reach for their sidearms. Akafer's fingers danced across holographic displays that painted her face in blue light. "Negative, Control. I'm reading 17 surface contacts bearing 090 degrees. They're not supposed to be there." Through her advanced sensor array, she could see them. Chinese destroyers arranged in perfect formation, their steel hulls cutting through Pacific swells with mechanical precision. Each vessel bristled with enough firepower to level a small city, and their positioning suggested this wasn't a training exercise. "Phoenix 7, abort current mission. Return to base immediately." Control, that's a negative. I'm seeing something else down here. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in any room. These submarines, they're not Chinese. The silence on the radio stretched like a taut wire. In the depths below the Chinese surface fleet, Akafor's sensors had detected something that shouldn't exist. Submarine signatures that matched no known vessel in any Navy's inventory. The hull designs were wrong, the propulsion systems impossible by current standards, and their movements suggested technology decades ahead of anything in official development. Control, I need permission to investigate. Whatever's down there, it's not on any of our charts. Phoenix 7, your orders are explicit. Return to. Control, I'm going dark for 30 seconds. Trust me. Akafor cut her communications and dove deeper, her experimental craft responding like a living thing to her commands. The ocean around her transformed into a three-dimensional battlefield map, painted in sonar signatures and electromagnetic readings that told a story no one topside would believe without proof. The submarines below weren't just unknown, they were impossible. Their technology suggested a leap forward that would make current naval warfare obsolete overnight. Worse, their positioning indicated they weren't there to support the Chinese fleet above. They were hunting it. As she maneuvered through the thermal layers, Akafor's mind raced through calculations that would have challenged supercomputers. Her billion-dollar inheritance had come from her family's technology empire, but her true gift was seeing patterns others missed. And right now, every pattern she could detect pointed to the same terrifying conclusion. Someone was about to start a war, and they wanted both China and America to take the blame. Her communication system crackled back to life, just as the first torpedo launch signature appeared on her screens. The torpedo's wake traced a deadly silver thread through the dark water, its target locked onto the Chinese destroyer's hull with mathematical precision. Dr. Akafor watched the thermal signature bloom on her displays, knowing she had perhaps 45 seconds before impact would transform the South China Sea from a tense standoff into an active war zone. Control, Phoenix 7. Torpedo in the water, repeat, torpedo in the water. Chinese surface vessel is about to take a hit from unknown submarine contact. Static filled her headset before Admiral Thorne's voice cut through. Phoenix 7, confirm your position and status. Ma'am, I'm approximately 200 meters below the Chinese formation. The torpedo wasn't fired by them. There's a third party down here using technology I've never seen before. Akafor's fingers flew across her controls, her experimental aircraft shifting position to track the weapon's approach, requesting permission to intervene. Phoenix 7, you are not authorized for. The explosion above sent shockwaves through the water that rattled Akafor's teeth and lit her sensors like a Christmas tree. Through the chaos of expanding gas bubbles and debris, she could see the Chinese destroyer listing badly to starboard, its crew scrambling to contain flooding that would soon claim their vessel. Control, Chinese destroyer is hit and sinking. The other ships in their formation are going to weapons-ready status. If they think we fired that torpedo, this escalates into World War III in the next 60 seconds. Admiral Thorne's voice carried the weight of command decisions that could reshape global politics. Phoenix 7, what are your capabilities? For the first time since diving, Akafor smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Ma'am, I'm carrying the XM-47 Integrated Defense System. Experimental, unproven, and officially non-existent, but it was designed for exactly this scenario. The rifle no man could carry, Thorne murmured, using the nickname Pentagon engineers had given the system after the fourth male test pilot had washed out of the program, unable to handle the neural interface requirements. Yes, ma'am. I can neutralize the unknown submarines and make it look like system malfunctions. The Chinese won't know they were targeted, and we avoid an international incident. Akafor paused as another torpedo signature appeared on her screens. But I need permission to engage now. They're lining up for another shot. Through 300 feet of Pacific Ocean, Admiral Thorne's decision carried the weight of millions of lives. In the Pentagon briefing room, satellite feeds showed Chinese destroyers training their weapons toward the last known position of American submarines that weren't even in the area. Phoenix 7, you are weapons-free. Protect those sailors and keep World War III from starting on my watch. Understood, Control. Phoenix 7 is engaging. The XM-47 system came online with a subsonic hum that seemed to resonate through Akafor's bones. Her experimental aircraft transformed from reconnaissance platform to something that redefined the very concept of naval warfare, though she was the only person alive who truly understood how. The neural interface that had defeated every other pilot felt as natural as breathing to Dr. Amara Akafor. Where others experienced overwhelming sensory input and cognitive overload, she found clarity. The XM-47 system didn't just respond to her commands, it amplified her consciousness, extending her awareness through quantum-encrypted networks that turned thought into action at light speed. Her target acquisition systems painted the unknown submarines in tactical overlays that revealed their weaknesses with surgical precision. These vessels might be decades ahead of conventional technology, but they hadn't been designed to face something that operated on principles their creators couldn't comprehend. Control Phoenix 7. I have weapons lock on 3 unknown contacts, engaging now. The first pulse from her experimental systems didn't explode like traditional weapons. Instead, it reached into the quantum foundations of matter itself, introducing microscopic instabilities that propagated through the enemy submarine's hull like digital cancer. To outside observers, the vessel would appear to suffer catastrophic system failures, power plants dying, life support failing, structural integrity compromised by seemingly random metal fatigue. Target 1 neutralized, moving to Target 2. Above her, the Chinese destroyer continued its death spiral toward the ocean floor, its crew broadcasting distress calls in Mandarin that would soon reach Beijing and trigger responses neither side was prepared for. But Akafor's focus remained locked on the underwater threats that had orchestrated this crisis. The second submarine tried to run, its impossible propulsion system carving through water with efficiency that challenged physics. But the XM-47's targeting matrix operated faster than thought, calculating intercept vectors through dimensional mathematics that existed only in theoretical papers hidden in classified vaults. Target 2 neutralized. Control, the third submarine is attempting to surface near the Chinese formation. If it gets topside, this situation becomes exponentially more complicated. Admiral Thorne's voice carried deadly calm. Phoenix 7, stop it. The third pulse required everything Akafor had learned during her MIT years, every breakthrough her family's company had achieved in quantum engineering, and every instinct she developed as a pilot who flew aircraft that existed at the bleeding edge of human capability. The targeting solution required her to predict where an impossible submarine would be in 3 seconds, while accounting for variables that included ocean currents, gravitational anomalies, and the quantum uncertainty principles that governed weapons no other military possessed. Her finger found the firing control, and for an instant that lasted forever, Dr. Amara Akafor held the power to prevent or guarantee a global war. The pulse struck the ascending submarine just as its conning tower broke the surface, creating a spectacular failure that sent the vessel plunging back into the depths with its hull compromised and its crew unconscious from rapid decompression. To the Chinese sailors watching from their remaining destroyers, it looked like a tragic accident, their mysterious ally suffering the same fate as their own lost vessel. All targets neutralized. Control. The unknowns are dead in the water. But even as Admiral Thorne's relief echoed through her headset, Akafor's sensors detected something that made her blood freeze. The destroyed submarines hadn't been the primary threat. They'd been scouts, and their quantum communications array had transmitted everything they'd observed directly to whoever had sent them. Control, we have a much bigger problem. Those submarines were reporting to someone, and now that someone knows exactly what we're capable of. In the depths of the Pacific, surrounded by the wreckage of technology that shouldn't exist, Dr. Amara Akafor realized she just won a battle that would inevitably lead to a war unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The rifle no man could carry had proven its worth, but at a cost that would soon become apparent. Above her, the Chinese fleet was withdrawing, their mission apparently completed despite the loss of one destroyer. But their retreat wasn't defeat, it was preparation for something far more dangerous. The encrypted message that reached Beijing 47 minutes later was brief and devastating. The Americans possess weapons we cannot counter. Recommend immediate escalation to Contingency 7. Admiral Thorne studied the after-action reports with the exhausted focus of someone who'd spent the last 6 hours preventing World War III, only to discover she'd merely postponed it. The briefing room had filled with officials whose presence indicated this incident would ripple through the highest levels of government, each face bearing the expression of people who'd glimpsed the future and found it terrifying. Dr. Akafor's performance exceeded all projections, reported Dr. Alina Vasquez, the Pentagon's chief weapons analyst. The XM-47 system achieved complete mission success with zero collateral damage to friendly forces. However, the implications of its use may have strategic consequences we're still calculating. Secretary of Defense Jonathan Hayes leaned forward, his weathered features reflecting decades of military service. What kind of consequences? Sir, the unknown submarines weren't Russian or Chinese. Their technology suggests a non-state actor with capabilities that rival major powers. By neutralizing them, we may have revealed our own advanced systems to an enemy we haven't identified. Through the secure video link, Akafor's image remained steady despite the exhaustion that shadowed her features. She'd been underwater for 8 hours, piloting technology that pushed human endurance to its limits while making decisions that affected global stability. Yet her voice carried the same calm authority that had guided her through the crisis. Admiral, I believe we're looking at this wrong. Those submarines weren't sent to start a war between China and America. They were sent to gather intelligence on our response capabilities. The attack on the Chinese destroyer was just bait. Explain, Thorne said, though part of her already suspected where this was leading. Ma'am, the quantum signatures I detected suggest technology that operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. Whoever built those submarines has been watching our military development for years, possibly decades. They know about the XM-47 program, and they wanted to see it in action. The room fell silent as the implications settled like lead weights in their stomachs. If Akafor was correct, the United States had just demonstrated its most classified weapons system to an unknown enemy whose technological capabilities might exceed their own. Dr. Akafor, what's your assessment of our strategic position? Hayes asked. Sir, we're facing an adversary that's been preparing for this confrontation longer than we've been aware they existed. They've studied our tactics, our technology, and our psychological profiles. Today wasn't a victory, it was a field test, and we were the subjects. Admiral Thorne's jaw tightened as she processed the analysis. In 32 years of naval service, she'd faced conventional enemies whose capabilities and intentions could be measured and countered. But this situation defied every framework she'd learned for strategic assessment. What's your recommendation, Phoenix 7? Akafor's response carried the weight of someone who'd spent the last 8 hours staring into the technological abyss and seeing something staring back. Ma'am, we need to assume they're coming, and we need to prepare for warfare that will make everything we've previously experienced obsolete. The silence stretched until Hayes spoke the question everyone was thinking. How long do we have? Based on the quantum communications burst I detected, sir, I'd estimate 72 hours before they make their next move. And when they do, the XM-47 system won't be enough. Dr. Acker's words hung in the Pentagon briefing room like a death sentence, each syllable carrying the weight of advanced degrees from MIT and hard-earned experience in combat zones where conventional wisdom went to die. The satellite feeds on the wall screens showed Chinese naval forces withdrawing from the Spratly Islands, but their orderly retreat looked less like defeat and more like armies positioning for a larger conflict. 72 hours, Secretary Hayes repeated, his voice carrying the flat tone of someone calculating impossible logistics. Dr. Ackerfer, what makes you so certain? Sir, the quantum communications burst I intercepted wasn't just data transmission. It was a synchronization signal. Whatever force sent those submarines has assets positioned globally, and they're coordinating for simultaneous action. Ackerfer's image on the secure video feed showed exhaustion etched into features that belonged on corporate boardrooms rather than military briefings. The signal pattern matches theoretical models for quantum-entangled communications networks that could coordinate actions across multiple continents instantly. Admiral Thorne leaned forward, her decades of naval experience trying to grasp warfare concepts that seemed borrowed from science fiction. Are you telling us we're facing an enemy that can coordinate global operations faster than our communications systems can even detect the threat? Yes, ma'am. And based on the technological sophistication I observed, they've been preparing for this confrontation while we've been fighting conventional wars in conventional ways. Dr. Vasquez consulted her tablet, scrolling through classified assessments that painted increasingly dire pictures. Admiral, our best intelligence suggests Dr. Ackerfer may be correct. We've detected unusual seismic activity near known submarine bases in the Arctic, North Atlantic, and Mediterranean. The patterns suggest simultaneous movement of large underwater assets. How large? Thorne asked, though she suspected the answer would be worse than her worst projections. Displacement signatures indicate vessels comparable to aircraft carriers, but designed for underwater operations. If accurate, we're looking at submarine carriers that could deploy smaller craft in coordinated waves across multiple theaters simultaneously. Secretary Hayes stood and walked to the wall-mounted displays showing global naval positions. American fleets were spread across 3 oceans, positioned for conventional threats that suddenly seemed quaint by comparison. Dr. Ackerfer, what would you need to counter this threat? The question hung in the air while Ackerfer calculated requirements that pushed the boundaries of current military capability. Her billionaire background had taught her to think in terms of unlimited resources applied to impossible problems, but this situation challenged even her expansive vision. Sir, I'd need full authorization to deploy the XM-47 system's complete capabilities, including features we've never field-tested. I'd need support from our most advanced naval assets, positioned in ways that violate current strategic doctrine. And I'd need the authority to make tactical decisions in real time, without waiting for authorization from command structures that operate too slowly for quantum-speed warfare. The implications of her request sent ripples of unease through the room. She was essentially asking for independent operational authority and access to weapons systems that existed beyond congressional oversight. That's a lot of trust to place in one person, Hayes observed. Ackerfer's response carried the quiet confidence of someone who'd already proven her capabilities under impossible pressure. Sir, 71 hours from now, trust won't be a luxury we can afford. The message that arrived at 3:47 hours the following morning bore classification markings that existed beyond standard security protocols. Admiral Thorne read it twice before summoning her senior staff, each rereading confirming that the situation had escalated beyond their worst projections. Flash traffic, eyes only from National Reconnaissance Office 2, Phoenix Command Authority Classification, COMPARTMENTED Special Access. Global Seismic MONITORING, NETWORKS, detect coordinated movement of large underwater ASSETS from previously unknown bases in Arctic, Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Ocean REGIONS. Estimated displacement, 47 vessels, each exceeding 200,000 tons. Movement PATTRNS suggest coordinated approach to major shipping lanes and naval CHOKPONTS. Quantum COMMUNICATIONS intercepts indicate 0 hour set 4/1800 HOURS local time, multiple ZONES. Purpose unknown but PATTRNS suggest simultaneous global action. Phoenix 7 assessment confirmed. We are facing coordinated threat from unknown force with technological CAPABILITIES exceeding current U.S. NATO allied defensive systems. Request immediate authorization for Phoenix 7, Autonomous OPERATIONS Protocol. 47 vessels, Lieutenant Colonel Rivera said, his voice hollow with the implications. Each one larger than our biggest carriers, moving in perfect coordination toward positions that could strangle global commerce in hours. Admiral Thorne stared at the tactical display showing projected intercept courses that painted a picture of strategic nightmare. If the assessment was accurate, they were facing a force that could simultaneously threaten every major shipping lane on Earth while remaining completely invisible to conventional detection systems. "Get me Dr. Acaffer," she ordered, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether humanity's technological civilization would survive what was coming. The secure connection established instantly, Acaffer's image appearing on screen with the background of her experimental aircraft's cockpit. She'd been airborne for 6 hours, running advanced reconnaissance patterns over the Pacific that pushed her aircraft's capabilities to their theoretical limits. "Admiral, I've been tracking the movements. It's worse than we calculated." "How much worse?" "Ma'am, these aren't just submarines. They're mobile factories, each one capable of manufacturing and deploying smaller craft in unlimited quantities. We're not facing a fleet. We're facing an entire industrial war machine that can replicate itself while maintaining operational security that makes them invisible until they choose to attack." The weight of that assessment settled over the briefing room like a burial shroud. They were facing an enemy that could produce weapons faster than they could be destroyed, led by intelligence that had been studying human military doctrine while remaining completely undetected. "Dr. Acaffer, I'm authorizing Phoenix Autonomous Protocol. You have complete operational authority and access to all systems necessary to counter this threat." "Understood, Admiral. I'm going to need every experimental weapons platform we have, deployed in ways that will probably violate several treaties." "At this point, Dr. Acaffer, treaties are a luxury we can't afford. Stop them." "Yes, ma'am. Phoenix 7 going autonomous. Wish me luck." The connection terminated, leaving Admiral Thorne staring at blank screens while somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Amara Acaffer prepared to fight a war that would redefine the very concept of human survival. Dr. Amara Acaffer's experimental aircraft climbed through 30,000 feet at a rate that would have been impossible for conventional jets, its quantum-assisted propulsion systems drawing power from sources that existed in theoretical physics papers rather than engineering manuals. Below her, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, its surface hiding movements that would reshape global civilization within the next 12 hours. Phoenix 7 to all stations, initiating Autonomous Protocol Omega. I have tactical authority over all experimental defense systems, effective immediately. The response came from installations scattered across 3 continents as military facilities that officially didn't exist suddenly blazed to life with activity that would have terrified congressional oversight committees. In Nevada desert bunkers, plasma-based defense systems that cost more than small nations' GDP began powering up. Orbital platforms that were supposedly weather satellites revealed their true nature as kinetic bombardment systems. Deep ocean installations that appeared on no public maps started deploying weapons that operated on principles most physicists would have declared impossible. Phoenix 7, this is Cheyenne Mountain. We're reading impossible energy signatures from your position. Confirm your status. Akafer's instruments showed power levels that pushed her aircraft beyond its original design parameters. Quantum field generators creating effects that bent spacetime itself into weapon-grade configurations. The XM-47 system had been impressive during yesterday's engagement, but what she was preparing to deploy made that demonstration look like a child's toy by comparison. Cheyenne Mountain, Phoenix 7. I'm operating experimental systems at full combat potential. Recommend you adjust your sensors to filter quantum field distortions. Things are about to get weird down here. Through her enhanced sensor array, she could see them approaching. Massive signatures rising from ocean depths that shouldn't have been able to hide anything larger than whales. But these weren't whales. Each contact measured over 800 feet in length, their hulls incorporating stealth technology that made them nearly invisible until they chose to surface. All stations, Phoenix 7. I have visual confirmation on hostile submarine carriers. Count is 47 vessels, matching intelligence estimates. They're beautiful, terrifying, and completely hostile to human survival. The lead vessel breached the surface 12 miles from her position, water cascading from a hull that seemed to absorb light itself. But as it rose, smaller craft began deploying from internal bays, sleek fighters that moved through air and water with equal efficiency, their design suggesting technology that treated the laws of physics as polite suggestions rather than immutable constraints. Phoenix 7 to all stations. Hostile forces are deploying attack craft. Estimate 200 plus contacts launching from lead vessel alone. If all 47 carriers deploy similar numbers, we're looking at over 9,000 enemy aircraft. The silence on her communications channel spoke volumes. Even with unlimited military budgets and decades of preparation, no human military had been designed to counter a threat of that magnitude operating with technological superiority that rendered conventional weapons obsolete. Phoenix 7, this is Admiral Thorne. What are your tactical options? Akafer's response came through gritted teeth as her aircraft's neural interface pushed her consciousness to its absolute limits. Ma'am, I'm about to find out exactly what happens when you give someone who thinks like an engineer unlimited access to weapons that rewrite the laws of war. The first wave of enemy fighters reached her position with speed that turned interception into a mathematical impossibility for conventional systems. But the XM-47 network didn't operate by conventional rules. Dr. Akafer's consciousness expanded across quantum networks that connected her to every experimental weapons platform on Earth, her awareness suddenly encompassing battlefields that spanned from Arctic ice sheets to equatorial oceans. Through neural interfaces that had been declared impossible by every safety board that reviewed them, she became something that had never existed in human warfare, a single mind coordinating planetary defense in real time. The enemy fighters closed to weapons range, their attack patterns revealing artificial intelligence that had been studying human combat doctrine for decades. But as they prepared to fire, something unprecedented happened. Every one of their targeting systems simultaneously malfunctioned, their weapons refusing to lock onto a target that seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Phoenix 7 to all stations. Engaging quantum displacement defense. Enemy fighters are having trouble hitting something that doesn't stay in one place long enough for their sensors to track. From the perspective of the attacking aircraft, Akafor's plane appeared to exist as a probability cloud rather than a solid object, its position shifting through quantum possibilities faster than their computers could calculate intercept vectors. Meanwhile, her weapons systems operated with precision that made the previous day's submarine engagement look crude by comparison. The first pulse from her upgraded XM-47 array didn't target individual enemy aircraft. It reached into the quantum foundations of their entire formation and introduced systemic instabilities that propagated through their coordinated defense networks. 12 fighters simply ceased to exist, their matter converted into energy states that painted the sky with impossible colors. Enemy formation neutralized, Phoenix 7 engaging second wave. But even as she spoke, her sensors detected something that made her blood freeze. The submarine carriers weren't just deploying fighters. They were manufacturing new ones, their internal factories replacing destroyed aircraft faster than she could eliminate them. All stations, Phoenix 7. The enemy has unlimited replacement capacity. We're not fighting a fleet, we're fighting a self-replicating war machine that can sustain losses indefinitely. Admiral Thorne's voice carried the weight of someone watching civilization hang in the balance. Phoenix 7, can you stop them? Akafor's response came through neural connections that were pushing human consciousness beyond its evolutionary design limits. Ma'am, I'm about to attempt something that will either save humanity or completely redefine what it means to be human. The quantum field generators in her aircraft began drawing power from sources that existed outside normal spacetime, tapping into energy reservoirs that theoretical physicists had declared impossible to access safely. But safety was a luxury Earth could no longer afford. All stations stand by for Phoenix Ultimate Protocol. If this works, the war ends in the next 60 seconds. If it doesn't work, she paused, calculating probabilities that involved the survival of human technological civilization. If it doesn't work, it's been an honor serving with you all. The transformation began with light that existed beyond the visible spectrum, quantum energies that rewrote the fundamental constants of reality, in a sphere expanding outward from her aircraft at light speed. The Phoenix Ultimate Protocol activated with a silence that seemed to drain sound from the universe itself. Quantum energies rewriting the electromagnetic properties of seawater across a radius that encompassed the entire enemy fleet. Dr. Akafor's consciousness stretched across dimensions that human language couldn't describe, her awareness touching every hostile vessel simultaneously, while her aircraft became something that existed partially outside normal spacetime. To observers on the surface, the ocean itself seemed to catch fire with light that burned without heat, creating auroras beneath the waves as quantum fields interacted with matter in ways that challenged the fundamental laws of physics. The enemy submarine carriers, with all their impossible technology and self-replicating capabilities, found themselves subject to universal constants that were no longer constant. Phoenix 7 to all stations. Akafor's voice came through communications channels that carried harmonics suggesting she was speaking from somewhere outside normal reality. Enemy vessels are experiencing quantum field collapse. Their manufacturing systems are unable to maintain molecular cohesion in altered spacetime parameters. One by one, the massive submarine carriers began to implode, their hulls folding inward as the altered physics made their exotic materials unable to maintain structural integrity. The fighters they deployed suffered similar fates, their propulsion systems failing as the very concept of momentum became undefined within the quantum distortion field. All hostile contacts eliminated, she reported, though her voice carried undertones that suggested the process had cost her something fundamental. Phoenix Ultimate Protocol successful. Earth is secure. But Admiral Thorne, watching from the Pentagon Situation Room, could see readings that indicated the victory had come at a price that might prove too high to pay. The quantum signatures surrounding Phoenix 7 showed energy patterns that suggested Dr. Akafer's aircraft, and possibly Dr. Akafer herself, no longer existed entirely within normal reality. Phoenix 7, confirm your status. Are you receiving? The response came through quantum entanglement rather than conventional radio. Admiral, I'm here, but here has become a more complicated concept. The ultimate protocol worked by partially removing me from standard spacetime. I can still operate, but I exist now in quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent until direct observation collapses my wave function. The implication sent chills through everyone monitoring the communications. Akafer had saved humanity by becoming something that was no longer entirely human, existing in a state that challenged the very definition of individual consciousness. Dr. Akafer, can you return to normal status? Ma'am, I don't think normal applies to me anymore, but I can still perform my mission. The question is whether Earth needs a guardian who exists between realities, watching for threats that operate beyond conventional detection. Secretary Hayes leaned toward the communications panel. Dr. Akafer, what's your assessment of our long-term security situation? Her answer came from someone who could now perceive threats across dimensional boundaries that most humans couldn't imagine. Sir, today's enemy was just the advanced scout. There are others out there, operating from realities adjacent to our own. Humanity is going to need protection that can function across multiple dimensional frameworks. Admiral Thorne stared at the readings showing Phoenix 7's impossible status, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, existing as a quantum possibility rather than a definite location. Phoenix 7, are you still Dr. Amara Akafer? The pause stretched across dimensions before her response arrived. Admiral, I'm something more than that now. But yes, I'm still the billionaire black woman who refused to let anyone tell her what was impossible. In the depths of space beyond human detection, sensors recorded the quantum disturbance that had just reshaped the laws of physics across a significant portion of Earth's solar system. The readings were transmitted through dimensional frameworks that operated faster than light, carrying news of humanity's unexpected capabilities to civilizations that had been preparing their own approaches to a planet they'd considered technologically primitive. The message that reached the Andromedan Collective 37 minutes after the Phoenix Protocol's activation was brief and carried implications that would reshape interstellar politics for millennia. The humans possess reality manipulation capabilities. Recommend immediate revision of all contact protocols. They are no longer a primitive species. Dr. Amara Akafer, existing now in quantum superposition between realities, detected the transmission through senses that operated beyond human evolution. Her consciousness, expanded across dimensional boundaries, could perceive threats and communications that existed outside normal spacetime. All stations Phoenix 7, her voice came through quantum entanglement rather than electromagnetic radiation. We have new contacts, deep space, multiple vectors approaching at velocities that suggest faster than light travel. Estimated time to Earth intercept, 6 days. Admiral Thorne's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who'd spent 48 hours preventing multiple world wars. Phoenix 7, are they hostile? Ma'am, they're curious. The quantum signature I generated appears to have announced humanity's presence to civilizations that previously considered us beneath notice. We've essentially graduated from primitive world to potential threat in galactic politics. The briefing room fell silent as officials processed the implications. Earth's military had just evolved from defending against terrestrial threats to managing first contact scenarios with multiple alien civilizations, whose technology made the previous enemy's capabilities look primitive by comparison. Dr. Akafer, what are our options? Her response came from someone whose consciousness now spanned multiple dimensional frameworks. Admiral, I can perceive their approach vectors and technological signatures. Some appear hostile, others seem genuinely curious about our capabilities. A few are definitely planning to establish diplomatic contact, while at least 3 civilizations appear to be positioning for preemptive strikes against what they consider a dangerous emergence of reality manipulation technology. Secretary Hayes consulted advisors whose expertise suddenly seemed inadequate for the situation humanity faced. Phoenix 7, can you defend Earth against multiple alien civilizations simultaneously? Sir, in my current state, I can perceive and engage threats across dimensional boundaries that normal military systems can't even detect. But defending against multiple advanced civilizations would require expanding the Phoenix Protocol to planetary scale. The quantum field modifications would be permanent and irreversible. What would that mean for Earth? Akefer's consciousness touched possibilities that spanned across multiple timelines, calculating outcomes that involved the fundamental nature of human existence. Ma'am, it would mean transforming Earth's entire electromagnetic signature to operate partially outside normal spec.